Welcome to Yeshiva Daf. We're holding over Metzia Daf Yud Zayin. Shir sponsor of Lui Nishmas Armbek of Shalom Lamp Basitzchok. This is a rerun of the Shir that was given on Shabbos. We're going to be starting the two dots of the Zayin and Beis towards the bottom. The Gemara says, "Omar Avol Ma Beichon Amoitze Shtar Choy B'Shok Abel B'Shkasub B'Y Hempik Lo Yachziru L'Bayla." So a person finds a Shtar Choy in the market, even though there's a Hempik, even though Beis Din signed in it, that's Mikuyam, it's a good shtar. Do not give it back to the owner. If there's no henpik, the Beis Din not mikayim it. You can maybe because of leavus loylovik. Can say maybe the borrower he wrote the lender the shtar, but never actually borrowed, as we saw earlier. Mind you, the mikuyam, there's a kiyum. Maybe he did pay it off. So the more you learns that the piroin, there is a chashash piroin, which means that we're assuming that there is piroin. Not that the Gemara said earlier in the Olet that we're not choshesh to piroin. This one Dharma holds we are choshesh to piroin. Is there a Rabbi Ravo? So Rabbi Master Ravo. Kol ma'aseh beis there is the answer, as we mentioned before. Ma'aseh beis you have to give it back, and the more understand what does it mean ma'aseh beis din? That there is a handpick, that there is a queue. Only Yiri Abri look kol ma'aseh beis din shovin. We're not talking about a regular ma'aseh beis din. Now we're coming to a new concept. He was found to be a liar. What's the liar? Rashi says, if you look at Lashon Rashi in the bottom of the Amud, he was also kafir in a different case. We'll get back to that in a moment. He's not Neman because he's a liar. Because he's a kafir once, so that's it. You're going to say, do we assume he didn't pay back? Because we one time found that he was lying? As we said in the early endowment, we talk about the shtaros of Beis Din. Chaltoso means when they give a document to actually foreclose on a property. And adrakto is when they give a document to go and search for assets around the world. As we saw earlier with Rav Zero, that the lavnei piroin, that's the Gemara's noiket. Mean we talk about you can't pay it back, or the Gemara earlier said another solution you could pay it back, but you should ask the Levi, should ask the Malveh to write a shtar as if he's selling it again. So that's what the Gemara. So this end of the Gemara here goes with a concept that we are choishish piroin, and the case that we find the shtar based, you have to go back to the previous answer. Says more of a kafir, now we speak about a kafir, meaning someone that we choishish is lying, because we found that he lied before. So let's learn about it a little bit. Beis Din told a loive, go pay. Tzedel means a psak din, it's halacha. And he said, I pay. Never. He's never. Comes the Malvin and says, I want to write a shtar to extract the money. You don't give it to him. Why? Because if Beis Din said to pay, and he says I paid, you assume they probably paid. But if Beis Din didn't say pay, Beis Din just said you owe the money. And they still didn't get to the final psak din. He said I paid it. Because assuming that we didn't pay it as long as he didn't have to. The Malveh wants to write a shtar to extract the money. I do give it to him. In both cases, if he said I paid it, you trust him. The Malveh wants to write a shtar, you don't listen to him. One of the friendship between Tzedel and Lo is the following case. What's the following case? He said go pay. He said I paid. And the agent say he didn't pay. We'll see in a moment what does that mean exactly, the debate. But the simple understanding, they denied what he said. You assume he's lying. He's a liar about this money. Listen carefully to the Lashon. If he says you have to pay, and he said you pay, so the Beis Din didn't say pay. They just said you have to. They didn't finalize the psak din. They didn't testify he didn't pay. We don't assume he's a liar. He's trying just to get to buy time. Until Rabbanan look at the din, I'll take care of it. So, what is the Gemara saying over here? Usakafran. What's usakafran? Depends. When a guy says, I paid and you found that it's a lie, so then in a case where they told him to pay and he's lying about it, you don't trust him anymore. But if they didn't say to pay, they just said chayav, so then you say, anyway, there's still time till I get the psak din, so then we don't assume there's a lie. He says, you have money, you owe me money. He says, no, I don't. They didn't say, no, you do owe the money. Then he says, yeah, I owe it, but I paid it. He's a liar regarding this money. You don't trust him anymore. Kio, bring us an example to this. The Shabte braid their Marinus, Shabte the son of Marinus, he wrote for his daughter-in-law as a guarantor, it's still the a special type of clothing in a ksuva. The Kabbalah accepted himself to be the guarantor. The ksuva got lost. I never wrote such a thing. Also, he said he did write it. So he lied about it. Then he said, I paid it back. Similar case. So you are a kafir, you're a liar, and this still, we don't trust you anymore. So, now that we learned this, let's go back to the beginning. The Gemara told us in the end of Daf Zayin base, as we learned today. What did the Gemara say? We don't say who's a kafir. The Gemara said, he was a kafir, so what? So, and here the Gemara says he was a kafir, we don't trust him. How do you reconcile these two Gemaras? So the Ran says, very simple. The original case, talk about who's a kafir on woman acher. He wasn't lying about this money, but different money. Like Rashi said, like was a kafir pa'am acheres, a different time. He's a different time on a different case. So because he lied once, I don't assume he's lying every time. But here, in the case that we have over here, he lied about this money. So therefore, I don't trust him for this money. That's what the Ran says. Toysa disagrees. Toysa says, the end of the exam base, he brings this as a question. And therefore he says that here, we're talking about Nefilo. It fell in the street. So that shows he's probably saying the truth that he paid it. So I asked them, but the Gemara is bringing an example from the story of Shabta Breda Marinus. The road to Kalase. What happened to the Ksuva? Because Ksuva got lost. It fell. So you see over here in Chorah that we see that even when you have an Nefilo, you still assume that we still say who's a kafir. So question what I said before. So the this debate is a very big discussion in the The Ktsai says that there's a difference. There's a difference over here between the case of the Ksuva where he said lo yudvarim loylo. He said never happened, and then he said it happened, but I just paid it. Once you said lo yudvarim loylo and you lied completely about it, then you don't trust him anymore. The case we talk about the Zayin base, he said simply I paid and you found that he didn't pay. That's what the Ktsai says. The Yeshiva says that the difference is that the case, when did the thing fall down? And in the first case, talking about that it fell before he lied. Then he lied about it. So we're saying nothing changed between the time that he lied to now. So I'm assuming he's still lying. The case of the end of the base, we talk about that he lied, then it fell. Then it got lost. And then he lied again. So you're saying the fact that it got lost in between and the lender did not keep it, that shows he's probably saying the truth regarding the second time. And the Chazon Ish says that really, we talk about they didn't really get lost. They didn't fall. Irkus means they can't find it. But it's not that that he was negligent about it, fell in the street. That's the difference between these two cases. So that's a little bit of the Achronim regarding when do you have Uchsa Kaf and we don't have Uchsa Kaf. Now, another interesting thing just to point out, Rashi says, when they ate the Mihim Yisoshalei Porah, what does it mean? Rashi says, Befanenu Tovoli Ferloi, the lender came to the borrower and says, I want you to pay. I'll be basing the loy Porah. He didn't pay it. So Rashi says, what's the case that he lied about? Not that he said I paid and they said he didn't pay. But he says that I paid, and they says we know that he asked for new money and you said, no, I'm not going to pay. It could be he paid afterwards, but I'm assuming that if he was had such asus and in front of Beis he said I'm not paying, he probably won't continue paying. Although we shouldn't learn simple. He said I paid on Monday at 10 o'clock, and they said you didn't pay on Monday at 10 o'clock. So why Rashi doesn't want to say that shot? Why Rashi doesn't say they just said that he didn't agree to pay? So that the Rashash explains, because the Gemara brought us a story. When a person says, Lo Yudvarim Oilom, and he says that I paid, and you find that he's a kafron, and then he says again, I don't pay, you don't trust him anymore. Right? So why are you, when the Gemara, in the beginning of the Gemara, how to have him, the Bechai tell you do trust him. So that's why he says to Rashi, Rashi said he didn't say he didn't pay, he didn't lie. He didn't lie, he just said one time they asked to pay, he said no. So I assume he probably didn't want to pay anymore. So then you have a difference between Setel and Chav. And so this is a very important point that we'll see as we go on forward to see the same thing. One last thought before we go on is that the Rif asked a question. We learned earlier, 2 blocks ago, the Gemara told us that when someone is only the Beis Din, as if he wrote a star. So if you wrote a star, how is the Gemara saying the difference between Tzetel and Chav? You have a star. You can't deny a star. So the Rosh answers that the reason, this will have to be very important in the Hemshech HaSugya, the reason a star works is because a star can go with Kol Lekuchos. But there's another point that the star does. And the star is, that's the very, very same thing in HaSugya. When you have a star, you have a din of Shtorcho Biyodi, my boy. What is the star doing by me? And that's why you can't deny a star. Here you don't have that. By Beis Din, you don't consider it to be Shtorcho Biyodi, my boy. You don't have a star. You have the power to go to Kuchos because they know about it. But not Shtorcha B'yod my boy. So therefore here, it's not considered to be, in some cases, he will be able to deny it. Says the Gemara, someone has to give a shvur to his friend. So they did do a shvur. They say he did not do a shvur. Here Rashi says the same chat he said before. Not that they say he lied about saying a shvur. He said that once he was asked to give a shvur, and he said no. So what we said before. So that's what the Gemara is talking about. So the Gemara Chuzak and the other Rishonim argue, and then the Rif said that there is the Rishonim that says that in the case of the money previous case, they say like the other Rishonim, they denied out completely. They denied completely what he was asking for. Said you said that you paid, you didn't pay. And in this case, by shvur, not that he said that you did a shvur, you say you did a shvur, you didn't do a shvur, he's not lying about it, but he asked you a shvur and you said no. So the question, why are we dividing it? Something to think about. Says the Gemara, so he said, Chayil have a shvur, Homan Ishbati, Veidim Uto Shlo Ishba, who's a kafir, no, it's a shvur, again, it's going to be a kafir for that shvur. Amur Kabit Aravo, it told from Aravo, Amur Lo, Mistapim, Mistav, it makes sense. She's chav shvur bebeis din. If Beis Din required to do a shvur, he said no. It sounds very much like Rashi. He said no. Avachar chiyavat shvur, but he himself accepted the shvur. Never. Why? Ovid inish the mikri ve'omar. Sometimes a person says I'll do a shvur, but doesn't really mean it. Or he said I'm going to do a shvur, and then he said I won't. It doesn't really mean saying the no. Adru kamid Arvani brought back to Arvani. No nami bebeis din kamri. That's what I meant. I meant the Beis Din. He has to do shvur in Beis Din. So clearly it's a shvur in Beis Din. He said, I did a shvur. He didn't do a shvur. According to Rashi, that they asked him a shvur and he said no. So he is a kafir, but because he was asked in Beis Din. He finds a shtar choiv, it says a henpek. The kasub is mami boi bayoim, and there's a date, that same date that he found it. Give it back to the owner. Even maybe say, maybe he never borrowed. No. There is an handpick over here. And maybe he paid it back. The priya I'm not choishish that he paid it back that same day. The Rebbe say this way. So he was bringing another problem from another case. A person who lend money, Reuben lend money to Shimon. and they wrote a shtar. He paid it back, and he wants to use the same shtar for another loan, the same money. You're not allowed to do that. Shkanim chashibud, was moichel the shibud of the shtar, and that shtar does not qualify for the first loan. Big machlekes between the sma and the shach. Can I use the shtar not to goyim shibudim, not for shibud? Can I use the shtar for milvalpe, or this shtar has no validity at all? The sma learns it does have koyach for milvalpe, not to goyim shibudim, and the shach says it doesn't have any koyach at all. Many rayas to bring to here and to there, mamish all over the place. Huge sugya. What happens when you can use it, when you can't use it? But just focus one point over here. Why does the sma say you can use it? The shtar is not a valid shtar. What makes the shtar a good shtar if you didn't write it for this law? So either you could say, and that's what sounds of the sma himself, that we have again the taino shtocho b'yodi my boy. If the shtar is by the malvik, that's a right. That itself is a right. Or that you have Edim Mesira, or even Adas Baldin. That's what the two wants to say. Something else gives power to the shtar, according to the sma, Shach says doesn't work at all. So in this case that we said you can't use a loan for another loan. Amos, what's the case? We'll talk about the next day or the day after that. Why are you saying you can't use it because the shiva is machol? Typically, it's an early shtar. It says that Tuesday, he just did the loan on Wednesday. We learned that you can't use a shtar mukdam. It's not valid. We talk about that same day. Meaning, he borrowed it at 10 o'clock in the morning, returned at 12, took another loan at 2. You see people do pay that same day. You just said the same day, but we assume people are not paying the same day. Did I say that nobody paid that same day? All I said is that people don't usually pay that same day. But it does happen. Talk about here that the loive agrees. He says, yes, we found the shtar in the shuk. Give it back. Why give it back? Because the loive says I really owe the money. That's what it is. Discussion, do you still have to have an empty or not? Places in the Rif you discussed. Does according to Rav Khan, who's still talking that there is a handpick, or even without a handpick? Right now, the guy's money, you don't have to have an handpick. Yachim I learned, so what's that for? How did I meet for a pari? Really, he did pay for it. The only reason he's saying that he still owes it, because they want to do another loan and they don't want to write a new shtar. Why? Why don't they write a new shtar? They don't want to spend money on the sefer. So maybe you'll chosh to that. Kamash one, they're not chosh to that. Why are they not chosh to that? The Malva won't agree for that. So there's a big risk. Maybe Rabban will find out. And they're going to make it, they're not going to let me use the shtar. So he's not willing to risk using a false shtar just to save the money on the sefer. By the way, Tosis mentions in previous Avot that from here, Mashman, we have this corner, the more leil, are you choshesh kinuni or not? Kinuni we mentioned before. There's a discussion, do you choshesh that the Malva liver plotted to do something wrong? Here in the Gemara it sounds that maybe sometimes you do choshesh. So the Tosis want to say it's still shittas according to Rabbi Yechon. So when my story now, what's that different in the Mishnah that said, what's the story choiv? Now we saw it earlier. If you have a shtar choiv and if there's a chayus, don't give it back to the lender. When we talk about the loiv agrees, when the Gemara there brought a few explanations in that shit. The one explanation was that maybe it's a shtar mukdam. Don't give it back because maybe he wrote the shtar in Nisan, but the loan didn't happen until Tishrei. You're going to come do trade with Kuchas without too early. You don't say the Malv himself will not allow it. Tell him to write a new shtar in Tishrei. To deal with Mishami Rabbanon absolutely. Because maybe Rabbanon will come and take it away from you. In other words, it's also a risk over there. You're writing using a shtar mukdam. If you find out, the shtar will be possible. You see the Malva agrees. So why here the Malva won't agree to use the shtar just to save on the money for the sefer? So more, that's a very big difference. I mean, also we should be used to Ravcho, and there he's making a lot of. It's a big reward for that risk. The Katorah of the Kuchas Benisim Tishrei. He's going to extract money from the buyers for 6 months. He's agreeing to this plot. He's not going to say a word. But here, came on the latest Raflo. Here, he's not gaining so much. What is he gaining? Right? The star is the same date. He's not really gaining much to extract it. The Bach takes away the word mine. To come and allow him to use shtar chashibuda just to save on the sefer, for that he's not going to be willing to do it. In other words, the idea is that it's a risk reward. To risk not to write a shtar just to save on the sefer, that the Malva will not do. He's not going to be willing to participate in such a thing. But to be able to go and extract money from the Lakulis for 6 months, that maybe will take that risk. That's where they're Yechoshish to a Kinunya. Says the Gemara, what's Bachar Ma'aseh Beis Din? Ma'aseh Beis Din is simple understanding. Ma'aseh Beis Din is a ksuva. Rashi says most of the Yeshiva Habonos. You have a Beis Din said for somebody who owes some money. A person said, I paid it. So the thing is that if you say on the base, loy on my klum. Doesn't work. My time, what's the reason? Kol Ma'aseh Beis Din kiman de nokit shtar biyodidam. Whenever you have Ma'aseh Beis Din, as if you have a shtar. So Beis Din say you have to pay, you can't say parua. Now, the Melor Roim asks, but there's no shtar over here. Part of the idea of having a shtar, as we mentioned before, we read a few times in that. What's your shtar doing by me? Here you don't have that time. Says the Gemara, so answer the Achronim. So the Melor Roim says, yeah, it's not shtar b'yodai, but when you're Ma'aseh Beis Din, you must ask for a receipt for a shover. If you didn't ask, as if you have shtar b'yodai. Chachon Wasserman explains, Shtocha b'yodim my boy is not a physical thing. I actually have the shtar in the hand. Shtocha b'yodim my boy is a koyach. Similar to the Chachon says regarding Migro, it's koyach hatayno. You have the power. When I have a shtar, I have a power to claim claims. Someone who has Ma'aseh Beis Din, he has the power of the shtar. Says the Gemara, only have Chia b'Habel Rabbi Yochanan. Lo mishatenu yizu is in our Mishnah. Hotzia tzvish l'ksufis. Metzia get ve'enim ksuvo. She took out a get, and there's no ksuvo with her. Goy v'ksuvo also. She's able to extract the ksuvo. So what do you see? Because he can't say parah. Amalei ilav de loy lachaspo lemashkachas malganis. If you want to pick up the clay, you want to find a jewel underneath it. Jesus brings you up shat from your tam. Then underneath the water in the sea, you have these pearls, but they're covered with stones that look like clay. So only when you want to pick up that stone, you're able to get to the jewel. So he says, I know I gave you that jewel, but you need me to help you out. You're right, it's a Mshad in the Mishnah. Without me, you wouldn't understand what the Mishnah says. He says, I disagree with this jewel. Talk about a case that they don't write a ksuva. They get that ksuva. In that case, the get is in lieu of a ksuva. So that's why the get takes the money. But a place where you do write a ksuva, in a kite ksuva gabio, if you bring the ksuva, then you go with it. And if not, then maybe Torah Ma'aseh Beis Din has the time. Nobody says no. What it says is not true. Talk about a case of one ksuva. If only if you have a ksuva, you're able to she's able to extract the money. But if not. How is it almona, a widow, minayusin, goyve? The more is going to say later, how do we know that a ksuva you get from Heyusin? But the more knows that the more right now assumes an almona, a widow from Heyusin, gets ksuva, moni masayim, even though you don't write a ksuva until the chupah. So my guy, he says about. He's going to say our husband died. Later in B'lein Parasi, maybe he'll say, I paid her back. You could say that and came Ma'il Chachamim et Tekanosim. Well, Chachamim didn't do anything because you never be able to get the ksuva. He's always going to say parua. So you see from here arises about that Torah Ma'aseh Beis Din lo maklum. So I wanted to say because if you don't have ksuva, you bring the gets instead. But now the says Abai, no, because you see on one Yusim. So you see that a ksuva works. You can't say parua on a ksuva even though you don't have a shtar. That's the raya of the Gemara. That Torah Ma'aseh Beis Din lo maklum. Now 2 points over here. Good number one is Taisa says when we talk about lo maklum Ma'aseh Beis Din. The first, the beginning of Taisa starts from previous Amud. So the first Tiwa Match in this Amud, lo maklum, for lo yini by makom she'ekoz iksuva, or makom she'koz yesh edim shnei tzefak ksuvasa. Don't tell me it's only if there's no ksuva over here. Even in a place where you do write ksuva. Metzia ksuva, and she doesn't take out the ksuva. He's not nema parasi because she has my sebasi. Right? Because even though she loses with that, that's the koyach of my sebasi. She doesn't have to show ksuva, that's to taste on the sukkah, and that's we start with the more later. Who says maybe no? Maybe only if you have a ksuva, you have to show the ksuva. Because we're talking about a case, even if there is a ksuva. The Rif argues in Tosfos, and the Rif learns that we talk about only a place that you don't write a ksuva. You have a ksuva, there's nothing to talk about, you have to show the ksuva. So what does the more bring a raya from? What is the more saying? Makom shekos ksuva, that's what we spoke about. You have to say, according to the Rif, that's what the Ramban explains, the Metzia Beis Din is not only regarding ksuva. The Metzia Beis Din is also when the Beis Din told somebody you have to pay money. And Reuben says to Shimon, you owe me money, they go to Beis Din, he doesn't say you have to pay. So for there we bring a raya that Metzia Beis Din you can't say any tainos. So the more you see by ksuva you do when you have a star. When you don't, and the more says maybe you don't have a star. But if you have a star, not. So that's the discussion according to Rif. So again, Mechubis Tosfos in the Rif, are we talking about a case where a place that you write a ksuva, or only a place you don't have a write a ksuva, then you have a taina. One last thing with this will end the shir is the Gemara. The Tosfos brings that the Mishnah there in Ksuva says, the Mishnah says, you see Ksuva, you get the name of Ksuva, go to Ksuva, so you can take the Ksuva. Why? Because you write a shtar, you write a shofar, to say they did it. Then the Mishnah says over there, Tzik Ksuva, so ve'enim aget. What about she takes the Ksuva without a get? That's the Mishnah over there. So you're married, Avad Giti, and she says that the get got lost, etc. So you're saying, he comes saying, never divorced you. So the flip side of that Mishnah, the Mishnah said, if she takes the get without a ksuva, it works. Takes the ksuva without a get, no, he can say, I never divorced you. Says Tosfos, as if there's a question. But then, he will chayav share ksus vayna. If she's not divorced. So he has to take care of her like a husband and wife. What about that? Says Tosfos, that's ta nechiti voidula b'soyer. She claimed, you have to give me a ksuva. He said, I never divorced you. So he does not chayav to her as a husband and wife, because as a husband and wife, if you have a husband and wife, she never claimed the husband and wife. So the Ketzai says, you see, the Tosfos learns that the way that the idea of Tanachit Devaydel Soirim, a person ties one thing, the other thing, that means he's moichel the other thing. Because here it's two options. She's either divorced or not divorced. If he's divorced, it's sexual. Not divorced, chav shel tzoyin. So how can you get out of it? So if you understand that it's like a name bonus, I believe you to whatever you're saying. If I said chite, I believe you're going to sorry. Here, if I believe you, but there's only two ways: either I'm divorced, or not divorced. But if you say it's a mechila, so what it says over here is Aisha says, I claim that you owe me a ksuva, and I'm moichel everything else. He said, I don't owe you a ksuva because you're not divorced. Everything else you're moichel. That's why Tanachit Devaydel Soirim butter. That will be the longest according to Tosfos brings in our sugya. But say, we'll stop over here. Because right now the Gemara is going to go into something which goes into the next element. The Gemara is going to ask, how do you even know that a almonim and eris has ksuva? I think Gemara is going to give me a few rights there, then we'll conclude the sugya. So that goes all the way till the next Mishnah. So we'll stop over here at this place. The Gemara now is second wide line regarding starting the sugya. How do we know the almonim and eris has a ksuva?